you very much. After today's meeting, they'll all be around to answer any questions that additional questions that you might have after the meeting. But there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions here during the meeting as well. Also, I'd like to introduce any elected officials that we have in the audience today to please stand up. I know we have some city commissioners here and school board members as well. And thank you very much for attending here today. We're going to take about 30 minutes or so. We have a lot of information to pass along to you. It's information that we have gathered over the last 3 or 4 months, and so we'll try to get that narrowed down as well as we can because we want to give you an opportunity to ask questions at the end of this 90 minutes that we have. So we'll show you all the options that are available to us and how they could be paid for. One of our biggest challenges is getting all the information that we have gotten over the last 3 or 4 months down to the next 30 minutes or so. So that's your charge over here, is make sure we get at least close to that, because we want to allow as much time for questions. And the reason is we wanted to have this town hall meeting was to give you an opportunity to ask questions. That's really important to us. So here's how this is going to work. We will present the information that we have on the different options that we have considered, and then the rest of the 90 minutes that we have set aside for the questions will be set aside for questions. And when we start accepting questions, we just ask that you go to the microphone so the rest of the audience and the audience that is following this again this morning on 1420 KJCK on the streams of JC Post and USD 475 website can hear those questions. So the microphones are right over here in front. When we go to the questions period, just go to the microphone, and I would ask that you stay there to the microphone until your question is answered. Okay? And after the town hall meeting, we'll have committee members that will be available to answer any further questions that you might have. So sit back and relax. I noticed that we have a wrestling meet going on here today at the Schenck Gymnasium. So, Principal, can you go out and get some popcorn and soda and bring it in here if y'all make yourself comfortable? Okay, yeah. So make yourself at home and support the concession stand if you'd like to. But for the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to open it up for information for you. So we're going to start it off here with a board of direction view, board of education, the direction for the Board of Education as we've approached this, and Dr. Corbin Witt has that for you here. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Corbin Witt.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here on a beautiful Saturday morning. I think it's appropriate. We do have a wrestling tournament as we wrestle with this situation that we have with the high school. So we'll go forward. I'm going to point it up this way now. All right. The Board of Education asked the administration, or gave a directive, that they would like us to look at forming a committee to review whether we should look at options for dealing with the situation at the Junction City High School. So after we looked at those, the board said what we'd really like to see is find a way to build a new school without raising the mill levy. We want no new taxes on the community. So we have looked at that. We have provided information to the steering committee. This steering committee has worked really hard to go through and gather all that information, a very diverse group, and I will tell you, many of them probably walked in saying, I'm not interested in any of this, and thank goodness they stayed with it and they listened, and I think they've got a good handle on what's going on, and we appreciate their hard work. One of the reasons that the school board said that they wanted to look at this is we had a long-term facility study done. We brought in architects, we looked at our facilities, and they gave us a huge through-in notebook of these are all the needs you have. So what's been created is every year we update a 6-year facilities plan, and that goes through and talks about all of the needs of the district and what are the priorities for that year. So it looks at elementary schools, it looks at the middle schools, it looks at technology, it looks at fine arts, it looks at athletics, it looks at everything and lays out a plan. And so they've been spending about $7 million a year on that on that summer work plan, trying to get these things done. The problem is we've got some major needs that can't be done with the physical nature of where we are right now, so that's why we're here. One other thing is that our mill levy and this board has been very, very good about making sure that they are watching out for the taxpayers of this community. As you can see, our mill levy is actually lower right now than it was in 2007. As you know, the mill levy is divided with county, city, and school district, and the school district mill levy is one of the lowest in the state. In fact, it ranks 221st lowest in the state of Kansas out of 286 school districts. So we do a nice job. Our Board of Education has done a really nice job of keeping the education mill levy low and worked hard to do that. So as we go forward, not too far, Jeff Underhill is going to talk about history.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Underhill. I'm a 2001 graduate of Junction City High School. I currently have a freshman at the Freshman Success Academy, and I have a fourth grader who will be here very shortly. As you can see on the slide, the first public school was built in Gary County in 1867. 36 years later, they built the high school, which is now the museum on 6th Street. 16 years after that, they built the junior senior high, which is now the Freshman Success Academy. In 1958, 39 years after that, they built this building that we're in now. And here we are 60 years later addressing the building and the possibility of a new school. This slide here shows the different phases that this building has been through. The original part, which is the brown, was built in 1958. In 1962, or 63, sorry, this changed just a little bit. They added the purple sections, more classrooms. In 1976, they added the front offices and the gym. 1978, they added the band room and some classrooms. 1990 was where they addressed more classrooms and added onto the cafeteria. In 2000, they added the weight room, and in 2002, they linked in the Deaver building. The Freshman Success Academy structure was implemented in 2002. The academy concept was adopted by the entire high school in 2003, and in 2010, the Freshman Success Academy was renovated and freshmen were moved there due to overcrowding in this building. Next speaking is Abby Corey on the educational challenges.
Good morning. My name is Abby Corey, and I'm a junior here at Junction City High School. I'm a member of Student to Student, Junction City High School's varsity cheer squad, as well as NHS. I'm also Vice President of Junior Committee and Student Council. As an active member as a student advocate on the steering committee, I will be speaking to you about the educational challenges faced by many here at Junction City High School. The first point I would like to draw attention to is the space for our music department. Currently, there is not a large enough space to include an orchestra room here at Junction City High School. This means that the students who are in orchestra must be bused down to the Freshman Success Academy and back before the end of class, resulting in a loss of classroom and educational time. Similarly to the orchestra students, freshman band students also face the difficulties of being transported from one building to another. As a band student who I was myself, we faced massive challenges because of the 10 minutes at the end of class that we lost each class period because of the transportation time, not only resulting in educational time, but also our practice time. The next issue commonly faced involves two new and growing career clusters: the law, public safety, security, and health science. The students in these clusters and those who are interested in them face a huge disadvantage due to the severely limited growth because of the lack of space required for these fields. Our science classes also face limitations in what they can do because of the lack of space and required tools needed for experiments, such as ventilation and gas accessibility. For instance, there are currently only 2 science labs at the Freshman Success Academy, limiting not only how often labs can be done there, but also what forms of labs can be done. Along with this, many of the labs here at the main campus are extremely small and lack the storage space necessary to hold flammables, acids, and even refrigerated items. These challenges are also true for our culinary arts program, one that is loved by many. However, the kitchens that are currently available to our students are inadequate and out of date for the type of learning that needs to take place. Industrial culinary spaces are needed to help ensure that students are not limited in their learning and teachers are not limited in their teaching to help teach the latest advancements within these fields. This leads us to the very room that we are gathered here in today. The auditorium. Currently, this room can house a maximum of 500 people in one sitting. This is extremely far from the current number of students currently enrolled here at the high school. To put this in perspective, there are currently 490 students in the sophomore class, meaning this room can barely house just one class, one whole grade level, and even when academy meetings or even career cluster meetings that needs to be held, it's hard to find a learning environment for them. Along with this, our orchestra, band, theater programs also face the challenges because of the fact there's not a pit for the band during musicals or fly spaces. Without these spaces, our performances are limited in what they can do and how much space they can acquire. As a student who frequently gives tours of our building to new students and their families, the location of our student support services is often one of concern. The nurse, bookkeeper, social worker, and more are all located in a separate room, excessively far from the majority of our classes. By centralizing these locations, the much-needed trip to the nurse or the bookkeeper may not be forgotten. Along with this, our school is fortunate enough to go one-to-one this year, offering each student their own computer. But too frequently, the connectivity, the speed, and the access to Wi-Fi isn't adequate. And with many of our classes utilizing not only these computers, but also the new programs that we were introduced this year, makes it hard to access these when there's no Wi-Fi or it's extremely slow. Not only causing an inconvenience for the teacher, but it also puts a limit on what we can do. Along with this, there's a limited amount of charging ports in classrooms and around the school, making it hard by fourth period when our computers are dead or on the verge of a low battery, making their use nearly impossible and again limiting what can be done in class. To conclude my presentation, I would like to point out that the elementary schools, the middle schools, have all been upgraded and even built new to address the learning needs of our community. Our students move from these upgraded ones to our 9th grade facility as well as our 10th through 12th grade facility that do not meet the same educational standards. Thank you for listening to just a few of the concerns the challenges that the student body face. Although I will not be able to reap these benefits, I, along with many other students, are advocates for future high school students. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Ruffley, and I've got 3 kiddos. One of them is a freshman at the Freshman Success. I have a 7th grader, and then I have a 4-year-old that will eventually be here at the high school. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the infrastructure challenges. These were introduced to us through being in the high school, and then through the steering committee we were able to discuss several of these things that are affecting our kids on a daily basis. The first one I want to talk about is the HVAC system. It's inefficient, it's ineffective. Our teachers don't have any control over their rooms. Often rooms are extremely hot or extremely cold. As you saw what Jeff showed, as the building grew and parts were added, it's actually on 3 separate systems now, which is not energy efficient. And without centralized controls, there's not a way to make it more efficient in the current building. The next thing is the plumbing system. They're aged, several maintenance issues. You might have seen some of those issues on the tour. The next thing Abby talked about quite a bit with the technology backbone, it's just not possible in the state that the high school's in right now to upgrade those things. There's not only the issues with the connectivity, the outlets for our students to charge their computers, but we're also faced with a space issue. A lot of the projectors are not mounted, the smart boards are not mounted, and those take up quite a bit of room in the classrooms, and it's just not up to date. It's not the standard right now for technology. The next thing I want to point out is there are some asbestos challenges in the building, in the ceiling and the floor. Then there's some ADA challenges that we're facing in the building. And the main thing about both of those is any type of construction that's done on the building does have to be remedied. The ADA challenges have to be faced. Anytime you start any type of construction, they would have to be faced. In order to remedy the asbestos challenge, the HVAC system would have to be shut down, and that would have to be removed if any type of construction were to take place, if there were some renovations in this building. As far as the ADA challenges, you might have gone down the ramp during the tour. It's not designed for American with Disabilities Act in mind. Any students that are on crutches or in a wheelchair need to go through the female locker room. If you were able to take the tour, you might have gone that way. But it's definitely not an ideal situation if you've got students in both gyms with activities having to take that path all the way. And that is one thing that would have to be addressed as well if there were renovations in this building, because any part of the building you touch, you then have to make ADA compatible. So that would definitely be something that would have to be remedied. The bathrooms and the drinking fountains are not ADA compliant. The lobby bathroom was brought up to code when there was some renovation done over there in the summer of 2016. And the loan elevator is not centrally located, and it is too small. Even if someone had large equipment and a wheelchair, it would not accommodate them. So. The next thing I want to talk about is the fire alarm. It also does not meet ADA regulations. In order to be ADA compatible, you have to have the flashing lights, and our system right now does not provide that. It's not expandable, and because of the age of the fire alarm system, the parts are no longer readily available, and so that's definitely a challenge. The floating slabs in the locker room have all settled, causing some structural issues that would need to be taken care of in this building. And then we've got some lift challenges. I'm sure you've seen that in the paper and followed that in the press, that there are some challenges that need to be dealt with the roof. The cafeteria for our students holds 302 students. This does lead to open lunch because we're not able to accommodate the number of students that are here in the high school. There's 3 lunch periods right now, and even with those 3 lunch periods, you're only able to serve 906 students during that time. So the open lunch concept is due to the lack of capacity in the cafeteria. You can see in this picture here, and if you just look around in the environment that we're in right now, that we've got some crumbling walls here. It's on the inside of the building and the outside of the building. Definitely another issue that would need to be addressed. The other main issue right now is security. We're involving ourselves in these Alice drills, and we're doing everything we can to be proactive to ensure that our students are safe, working with the local police departments. One thing that we need to make sure is that we've got controlled access for our students, and right now with that camera support, this building is just not equipped to bring it up to where it needs to be. The other thing that, if you've seen other buildings in the district, along with the access that they've granted and or that they've incorporated into the security of the other buildings, a lot of the other buildings have had FEMA shelters built. And those are built to the highest standards, able to hold wind and keep our students safe. And right now, the high school does not have a FEMA shelter for our students. This next picture, if you look down here at the bottom, that's what it looks like during a typical passing time with our students on the hallway. And if you can just imagine them actually trying to open the lockers, that would take up even more room. The hallways are just not accommodating to the number of students, and the building is just not designed for the students that we have these days. There's congestion, and it's very difficult for our students to move. So it's definitely also a safety concern when you think about a fire drill or a tornado drill, where you're going to put those students when those hallways are that crowded. So As far as the only one girl's PE locker room, that's actually a civil right issue. We need to provide equal rights to our female athletes as well as our male athletes. We do not have a female visiting locker room, and our females only have one locker room right now at our current high school. The gym bleachers, you might have seen how we pulled partially out. That's for a safety concern. We're not able to be pulled out all the way, and if you've ever tried to walk up them, especially maybe carrying an infant or a large bag, they're very wobbly and difficult. They're actually the original bleachers that were put in the gym. Go ahead. Talk about transportation. Right now, transportation requirements, we are busing, as you heard Abby talk about, we're busing orchestra students to the freshman success, we're busing bus students to the high school. I actually had that situation this week where I had to pick my son up from this high school to take him back to a meeting at the other high school, or at the freshman academy, and then I had to bring him back over here so he wasn't counted tardy for his final seminar day. And that transportation, not only on the parents, but also on the school district. That transportation on the school district is costing $18,000 per year. It's also taking valuable time away from our teachers, our traveling teachers, in order to provide the freshmen as best that they can. Those teachers are traveling back and forth between campuses, and those teachers have to be compensated for that travel time. So we're going to move into a video now.
High school is important because it gets me involved with the community. Like the CTE class I'm in, that's training me to be an EMT. I'm grateful to be an RTC through Junction City High School. I've often noticed that the Wi-Fi can be kind of slow because of all the people on the Wi-Fi at school. And then in the video production class, there's often not many outlets, or the computers aren't great for the editing software to run. So we often have to reschedule and find a new assignment.
With the wiring, of course, this is a 1960s building. Classrooms have an outlet in the front and an outlet in the back. They've added one because when teachers have a computer, they need one more. But now we're essentially in a period where there's a lot of technology, all of which usually requires me plugged in, and we have limited that.
In general, the current high school, the building is too small. We have to have two different lunches for all of our kids, and even then our students have to leave the facility because our lunchroom is very, very small, and all the students couldn't fit in that space. During passing period, the hallways are often crowded. There's not very much space to move, and you have to kind of dodge and weave in between people. The walls in the school, if you look at a lot of the walls, there's drawings on them, or they're chipped and broken. That kind of makes the school look less than it is, because this is a good school, but the walls kind of make it look like it's not a really high-quality school.
In a lot of classrooms, the classroom will be really extremely hot, to the point where, it's unbearable, or it'll be extremely cold. That's going to destroy the learning environment.
I noticed that the ramps that the people in wheelchairs have to use are outdated. They're in a weird location, and they have to go around people to get through them. And people who use crutches have to go up the stairs because there's only one elevator.
Devo building is so far away from the school that oftentimes many students don't go to the nurse or go for other needs because it's so far and they're going to miss so much class. Like I've never gone to the nurse because it's so far away and I don't want to miss class and be behind. It's just really frustrating when you really to a lot of your classes because of the distance. Our current auditorium is too small. The stage is not big enough to fit all those students. We have no fly space, so we can't use backdrops because the stage is too small and it doesn't fit that. We can't bring in large props because the doors aren't big enough. Also, we can't have students come in and meet in the auditorium all together because it only holds about 550 students.
With the freshman academy being a separate building and students having to travel between, one of the problems we have is that there's a limited choice sometimes in terms of electives that students can take.
I think think I also had lost opportunities as well. Being a ninth grader in the FSA and not being here at main campus, I was presented with opportunities last year and I wasn't able to accept them because of the different buildings.
I've noticed that the ceiling is flat, so that also causes a leakage problem because when it rains or snows, the water just stays there. We got our 2 bathrooms in the commons, so we got them renovated, and like we can't even use them because I guess something's wrong with the plumbing. I feel like once you keep renovating things, it's just going to cost more in the long run because more problems will keep showing up and the same problems will keep happening.
At this time, I want to introduce Troy Hurdle. He's the architect that we've been working with.
Okay. The steering committee looked at 4 different options to address the challenges that they have here at the high school. The very first option looks at addressing all of those infrastructure and safety and security challenges that you saw on the slides before you watched the video. The second, third, and fourth options, those look at addressing not only those infrastructure, safety, and security challenges, but also address the educational challenges as well. So a program is developed to find out what are the programming needs for the high school. So in that, they would like to see 9th through 12th graders all in the same building. They would like to see space for 16 to 1,800 students, and they would like to see the academy structure as they currently have it in the building today. So keep in mind, options 2, 3, and 4 address those programming needs. We're going to look at some options now, and these are diagrams that we use with the steering committee to study the options. They're not for architectural plans, but they're just a means to study the options. So, option number 2, that looks at how do we take the existing building and we do additions and renovations to it in order to meet the programming needs. So option 2, if you look at the top of the slide, that's where Simpler Stadium is located, and that would remain as is. The mauve color area kind of in the center, that is the existing building, and that's indicating that it would be completely renovated. And there's some additions that are around that perimeter shown in the tan, and those are just various sized additions. At the very bottom of the slide, that is where Deaver is currently located, and the idea would be that we would demo Deaver. It's currently office space for the high school, and that would make way for a new freshman academy wing, which would still be connected to the high school. And then on the very west side, west of the Simpler Stadium and west of the high school, we would add some additional parking lot because we would be taking up some of the parking for the new addition. Option number 3, this looks at building a new building on the existing site. At the very north end or top of the slide, the new building, that's where the athletic components would be located. They'd be across from Simpler Stadium. Again, Simpler Stadium would remain as is. And toward the bottom of the new building, or the south end of the new building, that's where all the academy wings would be located. And then in the middle, that's where all of the various additional support spaces and entry would be located. So the 2 footprints, the new building and the existing building, do overlap. So we would have some phasing that would be required in order to complete this project. But in the end, when it's all finished, the existing high school building would be demolished, and that would make way for new parking lots and practice fields. The very last option, or option number 4, keep in mind that the area in tan, that's about 350,000 square feet of new building space. That is the same size as the new building we saw in the previous option, option number 3, new building on the existing site, even though the scale is a little different. This here shows a new site, and what we'd like to see is about 100 to 120 acres of new land, and that would meet your educational requirements and allow for the space for all the various activities that go on at the high school. The additional land would allow for the appropriate number of buses and the lanes that are required for the number of students that would be bused, as well as it would allow for adequate parking. There would be space for a new sports complex stadium, as well as on the left side of the slide, you can see there's adequate space for practice fields, tennis courts, and baseball, softball fields. So now I'm going to have Dan Rather talk about the options being compared.
Hello, I'm Dan Rather, graduated class of '89, graduated Pina Colada. That's kind of the opposite scale of the valedictorian. Again, I got tagged into this. I see Hoover was supposed to do it, and he's still sitting in the stands, so I don't know how I got this again. Our group was put together back in October. Kind of about 3, maybe 4 meetings in, they kind of broke us up into small groups after we heard some of the options, and we went over some of the pros and cons of what our group decided, kind of some of the pros and cons were of each option. Option 1 is basically fix the infrastructure challenges we have here at the school today. Pros, we felt, that would be the least expensive. We could proceed without a bond on that. There would be no additional busing costs. The kids that walk to school today could walk tomorrow on that. And no need to build a new football stadium because the football stadium's built. Cons on that, the big ones were, it doesn't fix the educational challenges like Abby discussed. The FSA would still be down on 9th Street, so there'd still be some busing between schools. The classroom sizes and the corridors would stay the same. Basically, the building would look like it does today, just with some fix-em-ups. Friday night at football game, you can tell, or even just during the week when classes are here, we're parking everywhere up here. 8th Street, Ward's parking lot in a football game. So parking has always been an issue here. And then just the disruption. Everybody kind of felt it. I didn't think of it, but there's a lot of people thought, kids are here to learn. They're not here to hear hammers banging and stuff like that. That's just a big disruption in their day. Option 2 was to renovate, basically do option 1, fix the fix-em-ups here, but then add on to the school, as you've seen in the slides before. Again, that's a lower cost option, one of the lowest cost options as far as that we discussed. It does fix the educational challenges. It does bring all that in, brings the FSA up here. And again, we don't have to build a new football stadium. We got a football stadium here. Again, the cons on that, it doesn't address the classroom sizes and the hallways that you guys, if you toured, you see. Again, construction, it's still going to be a disruption. There's going to be a lot of construction up here, a 2-year process. And we just learned here last week, the parking lot, when they do this stuff, the construction outfit will probably take over the parking lot that's here today. So our kids will probably have to drive to a central location and get bused here, even if they drive. So that was a concern to us too, that we're having to find a place for the kids to drive to and then have to bus them here. Events. You can imagine having a construction outfit up here for 2 years and all the basketball, the football, and all the events we have here today. there wouldn't be any parking for nobody. Again, we'd have to park off-site, bus them in, do things different. And the con on that is the size of this structure, or the size of the ground we're on. We're about 31 acres. And we go to renovate, we're going to be taking the practice fields away, as you can see. Things change, we're going to lose some parking. And it doesn't really set us up very good for the future. There's the site, we don't know what's going to happen in 20, 30, 40 years from now. So it would be, that was a con to us. We would still be playing baseball and softball off-site, and the academies are not organized the way they would like the academies to be organized. Option three is to basically build a new school into this school. They'll start over kind of in the practice area and kind of build their way here. Some of the pros on that, obviously it fixes all our challenges that we had, all our educational challenges, all our safety challenges. It covers all of that. There'll be no additional busing costs. Again, the kids that walk here today can walk tomorrow, so there's no more busing challenges. And again, there's no need to build a new football stadium. Cons on that is the construction. Again, we're going to be disrupting our kids. There would be some phasing in that, so and what he talks about phasing is, as we build this way, we'd be tearing down portions of this school to build more stuff, so our kids would have to basically pick up, shop, move over Christmas break or whatever to keep construction going. So that definitely has a big disruption in their education. Again, the site, once we build here again, the site's 31 acres. There's just not a lot of room for growth on the current site that we're on. We'll play all the sports off-site except football that we do today. Option 4 is a new school, a new site. Again, obviously it's going to address all of our issues that we have with what we're setting in today. All the amenities, all on the same campus. We house it all on the same campus. Practice fields, everything that can be housed on there. We don't have to, the soccer team right now, I don't have anybody play soccer, but the soccer team basically has to wait until after football's done with football practice or a football game to come back and practice at 6 o'clock. A little unfair. There would be no construction problems. We'll build off-site. The kids today wouldn't see that. So we would just move the kids right into a new school. There wouldn't be any disruption or parking. Basically, school as it is today would be like it is. Obviously, cons on that option are the cost. That's going to be the highest price option that we have. And it would require more busing. Our kids would have to get bused out there. Some would fall out of that, but some would obviously get in there, probably more than not. So that's kind of what we got. And now I think I've got Ashley King.
Hi, my name is Ashley King, and I'm a 2001 graduate from Junction City High School, and I have a 3-year-old, trying to make her a year older, a 3-year-old that will eventually go here. We did a survey, which I think most of you probably took, hopefully. We contracted with Patron Insight, and we did over 1,300 surveys that were completed. 500 of them were telephone surveys, and then 814 were online surveys. The conclusion that we came with the surveys was to build a new school in the same location and to have no tax increase. Our conclusion with that is that the community is looking for the most fiscally responsible long-term decision to address the needs of Junction City High School. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Witt.
Sometimes when you say, okay, how are we going to pay for this and not raise taxes? And we're going to talk a little bit about the financing of a school and what we would do. One, we have to have the bond passed because currently the state of Kansas would pay 48% of the cost. And so that is the current law, It is in place. We would have to take the proposal to the Department of Education and then before the State Board of Education. So we would know well before the bond ever goes before the public whether the state of Kansas has committed to paying those bonds. Talking to Dale Dennis, the Deputy Commissioner of Education and Finance, the state of Kansas has never defaulted on a bond and interest payment, and if they commit to it, it will be paid. So that is one of the things that how we go through and do this. There is a finite amount of money. The state of Kansas, the legislature has said that we're going to limit the amount we do for bond and interest into the future. They have set a limit. They are not near that limit yet, so we still have time to get in a proposal to do something about our high school. Don't know how long. It may take 2 or 3 years before they reach that limit, but we know right now that there are funds at the state to do that 48% match and move forward. And it's kind of a first come, first serve. I know that KCK and I think one other district, was it Wamego, that just passed bond issues. So there are a few districts that are passing bond issue right now. So without a bond, if we don't pass a bond issue, the state is not going to pay the 48%. So that's the key, is that we have to pass a bond issue in order for the state to pay the 48% that they would. The other part of how do we fund this is through heavily impacted aid. Our district gets impact aid, and any district that has military students get impact aid. But our district is very fortunate in that we're unique in that we're one of 27 districts in the nation that receives heavily impacted aid. And the way you receive that is you have to meet certain criteria and have enough students, percentage of military, the tax base has to be a certain percent of the tax base, the average tax base, and all of those different things. And these criteria we meet. So we have been receiving heavily impacted aid since 2016. Also, just so you understand, 2017 heavily impacted aid payment is based on data from the district that we turn in 2012-13. So the feds are a little behind, so they basically get the data from 12-13 and then appropriate the money in FY17. So when you say, how do you know if you qualify, FY18, we're going to be looking at our 13-14 data. We already know that data, so we can kind of have a great idea of whether we're going to qualify and whether we're going to get those funds. We already have about $39.2 million in the bank. We're expecting a payment here that will take us to that amount here shortly in March. We also expect payments into the future. I will tell you that the federal government, the people that I talked to, are very comfortable that heavily impacted aid will be here. We did get a letter, I guess more of an email, a letter sent through email on Tuesday that stated that the Trump administration is looking at some cuts, and so that is something that caught our eye. So we've been in contact with our legislators, and Jerry Moran did write a letter to the district to kind of give his perspective. And Jim, were you going to read that letter that Jerry wrote to the Senator Moran wrote?
Good morning, everyone. Jim Schmidt. I have 3, soon to be 4 kiddos in the school district, 2 Wildcats at the middle school, City Middle, and 1 soon to be 2 at Sheridan. So it's my privilege today to relay this correspondence to you. We received this here recently, as Dr. Wood indicated, and it's based on some of the feedback and concerns that we, the steering committee, have heard. So with that, Dear Gary County community, for over 60 years, Congress has directed the Department of Education to provide financial assistance to local education agencies faced with revenue shortages due to federally owned land within their districts. Through the Department of Education's Impact Aid program, school districts have been able to offset the loss of tax revenue due to the presence of tax-exempt federal properties, including military installations. Heavy Impact Aid, which Gary County Schools USD 475 receives, is an important part of the program for the districts which regularly, particularly have large military installations. I am supportive of the Impact Aid program as a way to ensure students in these school districts continue to be able to receive a quality education. The Impact Aid program was most recently reauthorized through 2021 by the Every Student Succeeds Act, which passed Congress last year. Following this latest reauthorization, the funding of the Impact Aid programs, including heavy Impact Aid, mind you, will be subject to the annual appropriations process. This program has attracted significant bipartisan support since its inception. Congress must uphold its obligation to support service members' families and their children's educations, which I plan on doing through my position on the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees the funding of the Impact Aid programs. Very truly yours, Jerry Moran, U.S. Senator and Chairman of the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and related agencies. And I know that Jerry sends his regrets. Senator Moran would like to have joined us today to the meet us in person, and we've been asked to share this letter. I don't know if he'll be able to be here, but there has been quite a few communications going back and forth between the senator and his office and the group that's been involved with the city on this overall project. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
One of the things that's been asked is, are you 100% sure you received the heavily impacted aid? I don't think we can ever give 100% assurance to anything. And asking the federal government to write a letter saying 100% they'll do anything is almost impossible, but I think Jerry Moran made it very clear. The other thing is that the law states that even if we did not qualify for heavily impacted aid, we would receive a 3-year hold harmless. And what that means is that you would get partial payments for 3 years. This reflects that case scenario. If we did not even qualify, this reflects the 3-year hold harmless. And we did call and ensure that was the law. In fact, Hillary Goldman, who is the Executive Director of National Association of Federal Impacted Schools, happened to call me as I was meeting with many of the steering committee and say, we have talked to the people, we've talked to the lawyers, we've talked to everybody. You are reading that law correctly. There is a 3-year hold harmless. What you're telling the community is 100% correct. So we feel like that based on the information we have right now and what we know, that we feel pretty comfortable. We'll get our heavily impacted aid. Can I tell you the amount? No, I can't tell you that. But this does look at if we didn't qualify in worst case scenario. So Rena Neal is going to talk a little bit more about the funding.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Rena Neal, and I'm a class of 1998 graduate and the proud parent of an 8-year-old son who is in the 3rd grade and a 2-year-old little girl. This pie chart illustrates the 4 revenue sources that will be used to fund the bond payments. Dr. Witt just explained 2 major sources of funding, state aid and heavy impact aid. The other 2 sources of funding are the current mill levy used to pay debt payments and interest earnings on the heavy impact aid. So let's use $100 in bond payments, for example. As Dr. Witt mentioned, state aid will contribute 48% or $48. Heavy impact aid will contribute approximately 35.6% or $35.60 towards that debt payment. The current mill levy allocated to pay debt payments would be reallocated to pay the debt towards the new bond issue. That source will contribute 9.8% or $9.80. And finally, the interest earnings on the heavy impact aid is 6.6% or $6.60. To summarize, the state aid and heavy impact aid will contribute close to 84% of the bond payment, and 6.6% from interest earnings will bring external funding close to 90%. The remaining portion of 9.8% is the current mill levy currently used to pay debt payments. With this funding mechanism, it is important to note that there will not be an increase in the school district's mill levy dedicated toward debt payments, as it is tied to a bond initiative. This next slide summarizes the amount needed to finance the 4 improvement options presented by the architect. Dr. Wood explained that the school district would need to issue bonds to leverage state aid. This is the case even though the intent is not to increase the mill levy. It is projected that the bonds will be used over 25 years, over 25 years at an estimated interest rate of 4.1%, and the invested heavy impact aid would generate interest earnings at a rate of 1.5%. The state will contribute 48% of the principal and interest payments for each of the options presented in the table. To accomplish option 1, to fix the current issues, this could be done without issuing a bond. The costs are $31 million. These costs are based on estimates provided by the architect and reflect how much it would cost today to fix what was highlighted in the infrastructure challenges section of this presentation. If bonds will be issued, $12 million of heavy impact aid will be allocated. For the next 3 options, the bond amounts are all-inclusive, meaning they include an estimated construction amount, contingencies, financing costs, architect fees, demolition, land acquisition if necessary, and furnishings. The construction amount is based on the architect's estimate of the square footage needed for each student and the cost per square foot. The bond amounts reflect the maximum amount of bonds that would be issued. Once the project is designed, more accurate cost estimates will be provided. So for option 2, renovating the building, this will require $77 million in bonds to be issued and $45 million of heavy impact aid to be allocated. Option 3, build a new school on the current site, will require $95 million in bonds to be issued and $59 million of heavy impact aid. Finally, option 4, build a new school on a new site will require the issuance of $105 million in bonds and $67 million of heavy impact aid to be allocated, which is all of the district's heavy impact aid projected out to 2020, which was in the previous slide. So all 4 options show that the projected mill levy increase would be $0 and the monthly cost to the homeowner would be $0 as well. Each scenario listed aligns with the school district's directive and community feedback of the zero mill levy increase. Now we will have Tara Strada come forward to wrap up with the steering committee's perspective.
Good morning. I'm Tara Strada, proud member of the class of 1995, and even prouder mom of a 4th grader and a kindergartner in USD 475. This dynamic group of Gary County citizens called upon to serve as the high school steering committee has worked tirelessly, listening and working through the same options we've shown you this morning. We came together back in October with as many opinions as we had members. We understand your questions, we understand your concerns, and certainly your interests in making the best decision for both our children and our taxpayers. We feel this immense responsibility you have bestowed on us. So Junction City, now is your chance. This is your opportunity. We bring before you 3 questions. Number 1, is there a need for a renovated or new high school? Number 2, if there is, then how much money will it take to build what our students need? And number 3, where will that money come from? Everyone in this town understands that the high school serves as an epicenter, a reflection of our entire community. We take care of our community, our village. We support, we produce, we make healthy, we defend. Now we must focus our attention on the place where all of that greatness does begin, our high school. Junction City deserves a high school that provides our children the ability to become brilliant, well-rounded, adaptive citizens who serve as our country's well-prepared future. We have the educators and staff, we have the students and families, we have a strong, capable community. So now we must find a way to provide the infrastructure so that our children's education is top-notch. Junction City, this is your chance. This is your opportunity to be heard. The steering committee stands before you and we want to be your voice. We ask today that you rise to the occasion and provide us with feedback as well as questions. And please remember the children that you serve. Thank you so very much for coming.
All right, we didn't quite make 30 minutes, but there's a lot of information there. So we're going to open this up for questions for you and do our best to answer those for you. This is the second town hall meeting that we have had because we, as a steering committee, want to know what you all think and what your questions are and see if we can get information to you. Our responsibility then, after this town hall meeting is over with, we'll get together once again next week and we will make a recommendation to the school board based on the information that we get from you and the information that we have received. So it's very important that we get your input here and we can get that started now with questions. So again, these microphones over here up the front are available for you if you'd like to step forward and ask some questions. We'll do our best to answer those, and we've got staff here who's going to help us with some of those questions as well. So I encourage you to step forward if you have a question. You're getting some surveys here that passed out. We ask that you would fill those out while we're going through this question period, and that gives us some more information as well. So let's step right up, and on these microphones, I kind of sense that you need to kind of step fairly close to the microphone so everybody can hear you, and we'll go. Yes, sir.
My question is, we're already paying, we have a debt, I think, of $100 million on the freshman academy still outstanding. Is that correct?
On the freshman academy? Yes. No.
What is the current debt now we're paying?
All right, hold on. We'll get to
$28 million.
Okay, $28 million we still owe on the freshman academy.
No, that would be on the middle school, right? Yeah.
What are we still owe on the freshman academy? On 9th Street?
Total debt is $28 million.
So the 9.8% we currently allocate in the mill levy to pay for that current debt of $28 million that the lady indicated is going to be used or defund or to put the mill to pay the cost of the new debt. So with the new debt's $150 million or whatever you got it to, we're still adding the 28 with 9.8 coming out of our mill levy. Is that correct math? Or is that new math?
Your mill levy. You'd be extending out the mill levy is what would happen.
My question then is stewardship of our money. The roof leaks. You've piecemeal it, it still leaks. Other things that you fix within the school system, I'm saying you would here, we've done a football field, grass, didn't warranty it, we had to replace it out of our money. Majority of the people in this town, at least at my age, are semi-retired or retired. Okay? You're asking us to sign the bond issue regardless, we did this before on that thing across 77. We still have $100 million on that. The city does. I'm talking about 77, you weren't here, but we did a bond issue on it and we got stuck for over $100 million. You're asking us to have faith again for another bond issue for $150 million. And 105. 105 million, 150 million. For a guy making, $60,000 a year in retirement, you're still sucking a lot of air. I'm asking you, how can you guarantee the money's going to be there? And I, as a taxpayer and a homeowner in this town, I'm not going to get stuck with another bond issue where I have to pay it.
Right. What we are looking at is, as we said, the state would pay 48% of that. We've done all the research to find out if that will take place. We are comfortable that will take place if they commit to it. We will know that well before the voters ever go to the polls whether the state is committed to those bonds. We have some stopgaps. If we do not get a heavily impacted aid payment, it's done. If we don't get the 48% committed from the state, it's done. We are going to go through and try everything in our power to ensure that we are not asking the taxpayers of this community to put any more mills into this district. We are one of the lowest. We are by far the lowest in all the districts that surround us with our education mill levy, and we are trying to do what is best for the community, providing those options, and then the ultimate is the community gets to make that decision. So we're taking the information. The steering committee will take what they've learned to the Board of Education, make a recommendation. The board will take what they know, look at everything. They're the elected representatives from this community to make decisions. They will then look at all the information, and I can tell you, this board is very diligent on looking at all the information, and they will then go through and make a decision. we have opportunities where even if we said, okay, let's phase this in, maybe we want to do the high school, but we want to wait on all the others until the heavily impacted aid is in the bank. The board has that opportunity to do that. You do not have to issue all the bonds at the same time. So there are ways to do that. We also have some mill levy that currently is going toward capital outlay that could be redirected to bond and interest. So we have tried to look at all of the safety ways to ensure that there are no mill levy increases to the taxpayer of this community. Believe me, I'm a taxpayer too. I don't want to pay any more taxpayer, but I do want to do what is best for the students of this community, what is best for this community in the long run to meet the needs of the facilities that we have for students in education.
I don't doubt your sincerity one bit. I'm just telling you ahead of time, we have been burnt before, and I really don't want to see us burn again.
And we understand that. Our charge as a steering committee to the school board and to the architects and whatever is we need to address this with no impact on our local mill levy whatsoever. No increase in that mill levy whatsoever, and that's our charge to them.
Mark, that has to be almost guaranteed. For the kind of money we're talking about.
That's going to be their responsibility, whatever we decide, and disagree with you, whatever we decide, whatever that level is going to be, it will be up to the school board, architects, and construction to make sure that we stay under that limit so that it does not affect the local mill levy at all. That will be the charge.
And the last thing I'll comment on, preventive maintenance in the high school would help. Some of that stuff I see that we went on the tour today probably could have been remedied by spending some preventive maintenance money. And I understand money for other schools has to go on, but the point is, proactive preventive maintenance usually helps.
Well, I would encourage you that if you'd like to see the 6-year plan that has been developed that looks at all of that, it has been developed to make sure we don't ever have this type of situation. That is what we have gone through. We created the 6-year plan to address that. It is a very thorough document. I have to applaud the operations department and Mr. Clark for their hard work and all of our architects and structure. They've gone through and they've looked and said, here are all your challenges. Here are the priorities, this is what you need to do, and that's what the Board of Education is putting money toward that to ensure that we do our good stewards of the... Is it online? It is online, yes. It's on our website.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, another question over here?
Good morning. Phil Dieselkamp, lifelong resident of Junction City, Blue Jay. Have 2 Blue Jays that have graduated here, and I got 3 more. So we are blue. Could you break out the costs for us? Maybe some line items on like land purchase, the building stuff.
Just a little bit closer. Thanks, Phil.
Costs for the land purchase, the building, site improvements, perhaps furnishings, and building demo. I mean, if you've arrived at $105 million or $95 million, you obviously have done a little research, and you should have some of those numbers for us.
Architects or Bill, do you want to answer that as far as... Hey, Matt, can you bring up slide 61, please? Bring it up, slide 61, which just shows you, obviously, is the most expensive option, new school and new site. Breaks it down by the different line items. I'm going to have Troy, our architect partner, walk you through those.
Sure. Let's see, which one is this? This is the new building on the new site, and this is kind of broken out. Just kind of bulk line items to look at to get us to the overall project scope. Schools construction is kind of based on the square footage number, based on the programming needs that were established with the school district. We do have our earthwork cost and utility cost in there. We don't have a site located right now, so we don't know what those numbers are, so we have a allowance in there for any site and utility development. There's also building equipment list. These are all the building equipment that are built into the actual site. They are your bleachers, your your furniture, your stage equipment like your sound systems, your seating, all of the built-in items that are part of the school, and there's about $3.3 million of those. Storm shelter hardening, this is a cost to take a couple of the spaces and harden them so that they become a storm shelter. And then below that are all your other costs. These are all your soft costs that are part of this as well. And they include soils and borings, landscaping. There's the outdoor sports complex that's indicated in there, as well as tennis courts, baseball, softball stadiums, some purchase of land, demolition costs, architectural and engineering fees, and also we have to have Davis-Bacon wages in here because of the federal requirements that we're getting the money from. So the FA option is the very bottom toward the sheet, which has, again, some square footage numbers associated with that and the number of square feet that we're building. And then at the very bottom of the sheet, there are some options that we do not have in here that we were looking at as potential options. Currently, they're not in the overall budget. So that looks at that particular option.
If we are looking at a site that is west of town, I don't see any dollars there for improvements to K-18 or Spring Valley Road that would be necessary because of increased traffic demands on those two roadways.
That's a state highway, and those would have to be done by the state of Kansas. We wouldn't be able to touch their highway.
Are you familiar with the current KDOT budget?
Yeah, I understand. There are some challenges there. Those are true.
There's less than zero money in KDOT. Next year, we're going to build a few bridges, and there's a little bit of money for maintenance, and that really doesn't change for the next 3 years. So I don't think it's prudent to build a school west if we haven't addressed that issue. Maybe that means we have to come up with the money, but I think we need to have a plan in place to tackle that.
Right. And we're just studying those options right now at this current time.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Working?
Yeah.
My name is Mark Rozier. I'm a member of this community for a long time. 1969 graduate of Junction City High School, so I spent some time in this auditorium as a child. I like to think I was a child. To address some things, questions, concerns, and interests. There are several canards that are existing in our arguments here. Let me say, first of all, I'm tickled to death that Jerry Moran's on that committee. That secures that money. I think you do need a new building. I know this building, and I'll tell you, even though Manhattan remodeled for about $43 million and kept their 9th grade academy, this building, in some respects, parts of it are pretty bad shape. Other parts are in really good shape. Overall, probably needs to be replaced. One of the things that went through my head a little while ago, the amount of motel tax, sales tax revenue from people working in the area, plus NBATHs getting ready to expand. How many thousand people that are going to be working over there? That's going to generate revenue. I would almost bet you it would make up for that 6% that we're going to have to come up with. A large auditorium is not needed. We need to keep our football stadium. We need to keep our 9th grade academy. One of those canards I talked about, you say about busing from one end of campus to the other. That's about the same distance as walking from West Stadium at K-State over to Weber Hall. I did it every day. I made it to class on time. Okay. And then you talk about if you build a new site, you got a bus. So there's pluses and minuses in each of these arguments. I believe that students are capable of adjusting to those concerns. And I think about a statement I heard recently the soft bigotry of low expectations. I expect a lot out of kids, and they'll respond. Okay. I think we're well on this site because I think with keeping the 9th grade down there, building on this location with a new building, you maximize all your money in the best way possible. And that's what we're really talking about. And we're really talking about the best education experience possible. I'm a little stressed in my life when I'm learning things. I don't know about you, but I work harder when it's there. And I don't need it at home. Well, I don't need it at school, but the stress of getting back from 9th grade academy to here is nothing. I can adjust to that. I was on the board when a lot of these problems should have been addressed in this building. The problem was we didn't have enough money. We needed to build a building. We needed a community that couldn't afford the amount of money it would take to build a new high school. Because that's the argument I heard over and over. Well, you ought to build a new high school. Well, we can't afford it. With all this money that you got in the bank, we didn't have that. That building cost $32 million, I think it was. There's no comparison here. The building school is doing this job. The high school needs to do this job. A new building would do that. So I'm not worried about the mill levy thing. As I understand it, what you're saying is that the bond money will be negotiated on the middle school into one bond, which would cover the middle school and high school cost. And then the years, I don't know, what's the comparison? What is the bond payment right now as far as the percent interest on the middle school?
You got that.
Okay. But what's the interest rate right now? I always ask hard questions. I'm known for that.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Great question. The interest rate on the current bonds, I can't tell you specifically what that is. We actually did a refinancing here last year on a portion of those bonds. The interest rate was below 3% on the refinancing. Those bonds for the middle school expire in 2026, and so the new bonds for this proposed project would be wrapped around those existing bonds, and the mill levy dedicated to the repayment of those bonds would just be extended to go out for the term of the new bonds as well.
Right. Okay. So, understanding the economics a little bit, I know that bonds tend to go up now in this economy. So that's something to think about. Let's see. I've got a lot of things I want to talk about, but I'm going to try and narrow it down here. Well, that pretty much covers it.
Okay, do you have any
I did have a question about, well, just an observation. When I got on the board in 1989, they had just done $1 million work in the old middle school, and technology was already outdated. So they went $1 million down the drain. Not really, but it seemed that way. So when you build a new building, you're building something that you don't even know if it's going to be the right thing. But you have to do the best thing you can do. And the previous gentleman that was up here, I understand his concerns. This community has taken a beating from the county and the city. But that shouldn't divert us from doing the right thing. And so I think we need to do the right thing. And I just want you to remember that we're taxed enough already. But we do have to have something in there because you got to have skin in the game. The state won't give you the money unless you get skin in the game. You get 3 years waiting. Is that correct? You still get that for new facilities? Is that right? You get waiting? You don't get that anymore? Beth, do you get that?
Right now with the block grant, there is no, it's kind of built in. Whatever you got back in 14, 15, you continue to get. So we don't know what the new school finance will do as far as new facility waiting, as far as for equipment and things like that. But that's built into this proposal. So even if we didn't get it, we would have the funds to do that.
My final statement, and I'll sit down. When you ask for everything, sometimes you don't get anything. But when you compromise and work with the community, you get it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There were a number of things that was on the everything list that we talked about during our meetings. And that wasn't the everything list, but Yeah, we understand. Questions? Any further questions? We are available to answer those questions if you would like. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sherelle Coleman, and I have a fifth grader currently. My question is regarding the new high school at a different location. I see that you're going to put up all the different sports complex and all that. My question would be, my concern is when it's time for the sporting events and all that, how are the students who do not have vehicles or who walk to the current ones, how are they going to get out there to support this athletic department?
Okay. Someone like to answer that question? We'll go to the panel here. You're asking how students will get to athletic
Events, yeah, so currently,
practices, things like...
yeah, like we have the wrestling match right now. If you have spectators wanting to get out there who do not have vehicles or do not have a ride, you're kind of cutting back the funds that you're getting for the departments like the NHS. They do the concession stands, and that money goes towards things that they need. But if you're cutting back the amount of people that are able to go to those events, how are you going to supplement that? Or how are you going to get the students out there? Are you going to have a busing program to get them to their school activities and back to here and then walk wherever?
Ultimately, that a busing option would be a decision of the school board. I know that by having all of the facilities on site, that is a way to help facilitate some of that. There's a baseball game at 4, school gets out at 3:30, well, they're already there. So that's some of the reason for having everything on site, is to alleviate some of that. If there was something on a Saturday, that would be a charge of the school or the school board in figuring that out.
Okay.
I will tell you that the Board of Education will look at, we've kind of asked the steering committee to, as they say, a stab of the weeds, because their charge is to look at what they, as far as a recommendation to the board as to those 4 options. Our Board of Education is 100% committed to making sure that our students have access to those types of things. I grew up in a community where my high school was 13 miles from where I lived, and we had activity buses and we had things like that. That may be things that we have to look at, but we have not started that yet because of the fact that we don't know which direction we're going. But you have to remember right now what we're doing is we've asked the steering committee to get all the information that they can and make a recommendation to the board as to the way forward with the high school as far as a bond. No campaign has started. We haven't started looking at a campaign. The board hasn't made a decision yet, but I can guarantee you all of those discussions will take place, and our Board of Education will do what's right for students and ensure that they can do that. We have some options. I know that as we look forward, we would try to make sure that students are not negatively impacted by whatever decision is made by the Board of Education in the community. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question right here?
Hello, my name is Richard Searles. I graduated from Junction City in 1980. So did my wife, so did my kids. So along with all of you, I have a lot of memories and stuff that are in Junction City, in this high school. My question is, I went through the tour, a little bit about myself and what I do. I work in the second largest building in the state of Kansas. I was the facilities maintenance manager for 10 years there. I currently still work there, and I'm the operations manager there. I toured the building, and I didn't tour the entire building, but a lot of the stuff that I seen in the slides, I don't agree with. This building is in very good shape from what I've seen. There's some cosmetic issues that are there. When you go to IT can go into any building and be upgraded. Kids say that they can't get on the computers and stuff. You know, are your access points, are you shutting those down to where they're not on YouTube, Facebook? So education comes first over their cell phones and what they do. We do it in our building. We run a lot of products up and stuff through our building. We have to shut that stuff off so they can't watch the NBA game or the Super Bowl and things like that, so we can get business done. As far as HVAC can be upgraded in any building. They can be replaced. The heats and cools in this building right now, right? Some of the areas are cold. Hey, they got stuff called zoning now. It's all electronic, you can zone classrooms. Each one can have a thermostat, can go into a thing and zone it into the vents. Your boilers can be replaced, they can be upgraded. I'm not an expert on boilers, it can be kind of dangerous if you're not taking care of them right. My question is, I really don't care if you build a school or not. I'm kind of on sports. Everybody that knows me, I love sports. I'd like to see softball fields and stuff for the kids. I mean, it's a small part of it. The biggest part is, what are you going to do with this building if you build a new one off-site? I haven't heard that. I haven't seen that. Are we still going to take care of it? What's this building going to become? I can't hardly believe we're going to tear it down and not use it.
All right. Jim, there we go.
Thank you for raising your concerns. Obviously some very valid ones. I'm not a boiler expert either, other than I am a little concerned when they're 60 years old or nearing that point, and I know there's a lot of money being spent on that. And it's certainly an option that we as a steering committee and as a community that we are looking at. I mean, it's $31 million to get the school up to where it needs to be, just from an infrastructure standpoint, not from an educational standpoint. And no doubt, there's probably some things from a technological area that you bring to light that could be looked into. It's been a struggle for us as a steering committee to fully understand just, without, to Mark's point, going off into the weeds, which we've tried to avoid doing, and transportation and busing was certainly one of those that we did a lot of chewing on. And I guess at the end of the day, as far as this building, the FSA, the Dixon, you name whichever building you want to name, we've got to put our trust, the steering committee included, in the elected officials, that whether there's additional focus groups from the community. Personally, as I stated at the last town hall, I think there's an awesome opportunity here. I don't know what that opportunity ultimately looks like, but between the county, the city, and the school district to work together to do some really neat things for the community. I think that whether this building remains in whole or maybe in part, certainly a possibility, but then that's my opinion. That's not the steering committees, that's not the school districts, that's my opinion. So that's something that I'm also interested in to see, okay, are there opportunities that we need to consider? Are there pieces of the puzzle that we can bring together? I found it to be very interesting, very challenging. Frankly, I'm glad I'm not on the school board. I give those folks due respect for the opportunities they've got at hand. So,
and I'll add that when you look at singularly those issues, whether it's a boiler or whatever, you look at those one at a time. Yeah, maybe that can be fixed and that can be fixed, but when you add all of that up together, and that has to be done, all that needs to be done, you're still doing that in a school that's 60 years old, and it doesn't address some of those issues of the hallway space and the meeting room capacities like this room and things like that. So when you add everything together, that's what we looked at, and it came into focus for us. And the Freshman Success Academy, I think that was probably the first thing that we all agreed on as a steering committee, that they needed to join the rest of the high school to complete that learning experience. That way, I think the steering committee was pretty unanimous on that they wanted to see that happen.
So through the speech and some of the earlier questions, you said there was a network.
No, Richard, I coached against you for many years, and I know that you have a voice. So make sure you give me that microphone.
Okay. So the first guy that came out and gave a question, he came out and said you guys do network studies, and I'm very familiar. We do a lot of network studies where we're at. So what were the outcome of these network studies, and what were the suggestions of what they said that Junction City's school districts overall should be doing?
The study looked at all of the different needs and what we should prioritize. And it basically turned into a 6-year plan that addresses those needs as we get funds to address them. But one of the things that came out of that study was we had $31 million of deferred maintenance on the high school that we have to do something, and it came to the decision of, do we put $31 million into an old high school? Do we look at the renovating? Do we look at a new high school on the same site? Do we look at a new high school on a new site? Well, that kind of came out as the board saying, administration, go forth, study those issues, get a steering committee together, come back to us with a recommendation. We are in that process right now. We know through that study that was done, we have $31 million in deferred maintenance. That's a reality. It's just, is it better to put that $31 million into a 60-year-old facility, or do we need to put it that money into a new facility? And that's the question that is being discussed by everyone here, so that the board can go forth and make the best decision. So right now, that's in the middle of that discussion, is where we are.
And the other thing that the steering committee was nearly unanimous on is that we need to do this, whatever the option is going to be, we need to do this without affecting the local mill levy and local tax dollars and the effect on local taxpayers. That's the only way we could look at doing it. We were pretty much almost unanimous on that. So, okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. We're close. We've got time for another question or two. So.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ron Clasberry. First of all, I said...
Same thing. Here we go.
Before I got here, I was a naysayer, okay? Because I believed that our mill levy would go up. But after being on a tour and listening to the steering committee, I believe that all this information needs to get out to the community, because now I'm not a naysayer, okay? But I do have one question, just for clarity. The line item on number 9, the sports complex. Is the sports complex truly going to be for the high school, or we're going to be able to do other venues there?
Yes. We have had those discussions, and we have had a presentation. There is an effort here locally for a sports complex, and we've talked about the possibility of some kind of a shared facility. It hasn't got any further than that. You're asking whether that's something that the community can use or will be available to the community. There's some options there, but we haven't addressed that any further than that. Okay.
And I will add, currently our junior Jays football program uses the high school facilities here. What's presented is the high schools. There is a completely separate committee and campaign and things that are going on for a community sports complex, and they could possibly work together in the future, but kind of what we're presenting and talking about now is for high school facilities and use.
Right.
Okay. And the second and the last question I had, it's not really a question, it's a statement. On a tour, we heard that Colonel Clark, prior to Colonel Clark getting here, there was not a 6-year maintenance as far as plan to maintain this building. So we want to make sure when the new school will go up, there is a plan in place. Okay, continue, even if you go on to greater things. Okay? So, oh yeah, you never know.
I think we would probably all agree with that. That would be our wish as well.
And kudos go out to the young lady, Abby.
And we have been really impressed throughout this process of meetings that we have had. We have had students that have participated in those meetings with us, and they've done a fantastic job. Great kids here.
My name is Joe Bowman. I'm actually a teacher here. I teach AV Communications. We're currently running the live stream right now, which Mr. Silly has so politely taken over for me so I can ask my question. So those of you watching the live stream, sorry if there's mistakes, but it's not me. Anyways, as a new first-year teacher, I'm actually from Riley County. I graduated from Riley County High School. And being able to watch both the town halls now from the perspective I watch, I get to see everything everybody says, everybody talks about, all the presentations. And the biggest thing that stood out to me is in my district, Riley County, USD 375, or 378, sorry. we've failed 2 bond issues in the past 6 years, and it's been because of misinformation. And I think that the fact that this group has been so willing to share all the information they've gathered hopefully will benefit this whole process. As a teacher that is highly tech-oriented, I can tell you that this, I'm not the expert on tech, but this building, the connectivity is horrible. I've got kids, I teach 3 sections of graphic design and 2 of video production, which those of you that know anything about those, they require a lot of technological support as well as internet support, and there are days that I have to extend deadlines weeks out in advance because the network doesn't work. I've got kids that they can't learn their software, so I'm constantly extending deadlines, so I'm not able to actually teach them the way that I need to teach them the importance of deadlines and things like that because of the network. That's the biggest issue I've faced here, and I think the new building would be huge for this district. I think that Junction City doesn't have the greatest reputation publicly, and I truly don't know why. When I came and started teaching here, I was under that impression that Junction City was what everybody told me it was, this horrible place, all these terrible people and all this stuff. And first day I stepped in here, I'm like, what is everybody talking about? And I'm being 100% honest. Not because I'm employed here, it's not because I want to keep my job. I am 100% honest on this. Like, it is a great place. We are one of the most innovative schools in the state. We offer kids stuff that nobody else offers, and for us to adopt that practice of being so innovative, but to stay in a building that is not anywhere up to par with what we offer academically is insane to me. I think that in order to get the district where it needs to be and get the high school where it needs to be, the building is that next step, because we've taken that step academically and we offer kids everything. But the building is what is holding us back right now, in my opinion. So I just kind of wanted to share that because teachers, I think we've got opinions on it, and I'm not speaking for all teachers or anything like that, but that's how I feel about it, and I think Junction City is a great place, and the building would only upgrade the district as a whole. So, okay. Thank you.
I agree with you, and I heard the same things when we moved here as well. And the school district is one of the reasons that changed my mind, and changed how this school experience has been fantastic for my kids, and continues to serve them today. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Gary Earls. I just have a couple of quick questions, just to clarify in my mind. What is the mill levy that the school district charges currently? 43.5. And that 43.525 equates to how many dollars? What's the budget for that mill with the income?
When we look at our revenue, our district creates about $277,000 per mill, is that right? And so you can do the math.
All right, thank you. I just want to make the point that no one should leave this room under the impression that in spite of what's being said, your taxes will go up. Your taxes will go up. It may not be a result in the change of the mill levy, but your taxes will go up because your appraised value will go up over time, because that's what happens in any vibrant growing community. So keep in mind, a few years from now, if this goes through and your taxes are higher, we cannot come back to the school district and say, hey, my taxes are higher, because all they have to do is point to that number and say, I understand that the mill levy did not go up. And there's a huge misconception among taxpayers of the difference, I shouldn't say misconception, a lack of understanding of the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Derek Smith. I'm the editor of the...
We need a microphone over here.
What about touch? There we go. I'm Derek Smith. I'm the editor of the Junction City I just want to, I feel like there hasn't been enough talked about, gentlemen earlier talked about future-proofing, a lot of things that you can't plan for. The new school same site plan versus the new school new site plan, in the event that something needs to be changed, built onto. In my view, new school same site kind of boxes us in here. So can you just talk about what would need to be done in that plan to expand?
All right. Yeah, Leon Osborne, class of 1972. I've had a lot of questions from various people as how can we expand this site. So I took it upon myself. I looked from property north of the stadium, 11th Street to 12th, Eisenhower to Price's Ravine. There's 31 structures in there, and if you look at the assessed valuation, do the math, they're right around $100,000 each. It would cost you about $3.1 million, and that's with $2,000 per structure to demolish them, 25% incentive money to get people to sell their homes. And that doesn't count taking out any utilities or any of the infrastructure, the streets that have to be done. The city would be tasked with building some new water lines / through this project. So there's a lot of hidden costs if you try and expand this site. We just can't afford to do it. That's $3 million for 7 acres. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Justin Huber, I also serve on the steering committee, and I just wanted to respond to what the previous gentleman said about the mill levy, and that is absolutely true. The mill levy holding the same does not mean that your taxes don't go up. There is a 1% increase built into the system that they're talking about here as far as appraised value, so that is built into it. 1% is very, very modest, and is something that is extremely reasonable. You know, inflation is built into our system. The things that we buy today cost a lot more than they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You know, that's why the stock market is 20,000 now, and a long time ago it was, I can remember when it was 700. I wish I was a little smarter when it was 700. We've invested a little better, but you know, inflation is built into our system, and so if you consider that we're talking about a 1% rate of inflation for the appraised value of all of our homes, that is very, very reasonable. So, you know, you can't take a tremendous amount of stock in the mill levy because you have to build into what's going to happen with appraised value, but I think that they're doing a very smart job of planning this out, and that's extremely reasonable.
Okay. Any other questions? We want to make sure we can get to the wrestling meet in time. So,
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that I hear a lot of concern about things once they get to 60. So I'm not 60 yet, I'm 54, but it makes me a little nervous about, you know, turning 60 and what might happen to you. I want to make just a general statement. Our taxes are going to go up. I mean, the state budget is in the tank. The state general fund shortfall for fiscal year 2017 is $349 million. Fiscal year 18, $582 million. Fiscal year 19, $172 million. There's discussion that there's another $203 million not even accounted for in that, so that would put us at about $1.3 billion shortfall over the next 3 fiscal years. So that's one thing to consider. Our taxes are going to go up. Our income taxes are going to go up. Sin taxes, the pina colada tax will go up. And fuel is going to go up. So we're going to spend more money than we've been spending. Whether the mill levy increases or not, we're going to spend more in taxes. I'm also concerned, I read this last week, that the House Appropriations Committee took a look at what it takes to balance the current fiscal year budget with just budget cuts. And that would take a 6.95% across the board cut for everything in the general fund. And that would raise an estimated $224.5 million And for K through 12 public education, that's a $225 million cut. So we say that the state has never elected to not match, but we've never been in the current fiscal condition that we are in right now either.
Sure. I agree with you. The state has some challenges, and they have what I like to call opportunities for leadership right now. I think there is a change at the state level as far as conservative moderate, and they're looking at doing some things to try to enhance revenue. I think the key to that, though, is that what we're looking at, nothing changes. This doesn't change any of that. That's going to happen no matter what happens with this issue, and we're trying to look at what's best for students of this community to meet the needs, the educational needs of the students in this community with the information that we have, and we have done our due diligence in going through and gathering that. I do want to say a sincere thank you to the steering committee. They put in countless hours gathering as much information as they can to make the best possible recommendation to the Board of Education. And believe me, they didn't take in the charge lightly. They have worked very, very hard. So all of the stuff, the concerns that people have, they've been going through those same discussions, those same arguments, and all those things. So I have great faith that they are trying to do what is truly in the best interest of Junction City, Grandview, Milford, Gary County, and USD 475. So I just would like to say a big thank you again to the steering committee for all your efforts and everything you've done. So
just one more thought. The new Fort Riley Elementary School, and I went back last week and I looked at some news articles about that as we were thinking about building that building. And we started at $16 million, I believe, was the estimate we got, and we ended up at $22 million. So you got real quick, that's about 25% increase. So $105 million, if we're missing here by 25%, we're looking at $131 million. Do we have those contingencies built in? Have we really thought about that? And who were the folks that gave us those numbers? Or some folks we're working with today?
I will tell you that if we say we will not exceed $105 million, we will not exceed $105 million. And I will also tell you that the excess cost for the Fort Riley Elementary School cost this district nothing. We were able to do that all through no increase in local effort. So we do work hard to try to take care of our local community.
Well, we got another question waiting here, so let's go ahead.
Just respond real quick. Tax dollars, if it's federal or state or local, they are all of our tax dollars. We need to be very prudent. We need to change the way we do business with regard to taxes.
And I will just echo what the superintendent said. From the steering committee, we have been very, very clear that whatever recommendation we are making to the school board and we're charging to the school board, that you have to stay within those dollar amounts. It's very, very important, and we've all been on board on that. We understand. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm Brian Peterson, class of 97. I echo Dr. Witt's comments. I appreciate the steering committee's time. I also appreciate all the people from the community coming out and being interested. My question is, it kind of plays off what Mark Rozier said. Sometimes we ask for everything and we get nothing. I agree that we probably need a new high school, or at least vast improvements. But I have a concern with so many unknowns on option 4 that the public might be fighting with all the unknowns, and then they're just voting no. Could the bond initiative be written in a way that would allow it to be either option 3 or 4 if the options from the 4 become too cost prohibitive, and kind of give the public the option rather than one or the other? Because we're asking the steering committee to make a recommendation to the school, and then the school is like, that seems like that's the only option. It seems like there's really two, in my opinion, two options that gives us a random school and fills all the needs. Option 3 has a lot fewer unknowns, and I think that's probably a con that should be listed under option 4, is there's just so many unknown costs out there to be accounted for.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. The answer to your question is yes. I will tell you that the steering committee got to that point because of a hot-button subject called an auditorium. And when the discussion was ran back and forth for a significant amount of time, I believe the statement was there's no one in the world that even those of us that supported the idea of an auditorium, albeit one that can potentially have community involvement and participation in, that those type of hot buttons, those things that are lower on the priority list, the nice-to-haves, not the need-to-haves, needed to be broken out and almost a la carte type of opportunity. And that was one of the questions we had. Knowing their background, their expertise, we looked to the architects for it, and they said yes, they have known of other bond elections that have gone before our community that may be a 2 or even 3-step voting process. Do you vote for what we have to have, whatever that may be? That's number one. Okay. Then what about subsequent ones? And ultimately, that's going to be up to the school board, should they choose to move forward on their bond election, to decide on whether or not they break that out at different levels. So there's definitely that possibility. But just know that from the steering committee's perspective, it was something that we struggled with too, because it's like, well, if you have to do it all at one time, and we have those concerns that, my gosh, there could be just enough hot button issues that enough people could say, no, and then the whole thing fails, and that just seemed very silly to us. So there is the opportunity, should the school board choose to move forward with it, to break it down that way. But, thank you.
Okay. I think we've kept you for a long time, but the steering committee members are here to answer questions if you have some more questions after our meeting here this morning, and we'll be glad to answer those questions. Like I said, we're going to get together here shortly after these 2 town hall meetings and make a recommendation from the steering committee to the school board. One of the things that we have found in our discussions over the last 3.5 or 4 months is that whatever this option is going to be, we have an option to do something now that we may never have an option to do in the future. And we have to be smart about what we're doing, and we have to do the right thing, because we may not have this opportunity ever before, and then 10 years from now, we really have a problem. So we take this all very seriously. We appreciate your comments here this morning. We'll take that to our steering committee, and we'll make a recommendation to the board, and then we'll go forward from there. But for now, unless anybody else has anything else they'd like to add, I thank you all very much for coming out this morning, for listening and watching, and we appreciate your support, and go Blue Jays.
And that will wrap up day 2, the second town hall, Junction City High School Way Forward Town Hall meeting. We heard several arguments today for and against the school, several people coming and speaking just in support of the steering committee and all their work. You can find a live stream video replay on jcpost.com. I'm D'Angela McDougald reporting. We'll take it back to you, Jerry.